Michael Bay is one of the most popular and successful directors of the past few decades. But despite his success, he's seen as one of the most controversial directors of our time, especially from an audience standpoint. Of his 13 directed films, 6 have made over $500 million each, and 2 have made well over $1 billion each. But critical and audience reception to these has been less than positive. For example, on Rotten Tomatoes, only 3 of his films have scored over 60%, and that's also including his other 18 producing credits. Many attribute this to his seemingly style over substance way to filmmaking. Many of his films include the ever-present explosion, action sequence, lens flare, and much more. But oftentimes, the problem with his films are not the inclusion of these elements, but rather the excess of the use of them. In the 1989 article Dickens, Griffith, and Film Theory Today, Rick Altman describes excess as unmotivated events, rhythmic montage, highlighted parallelisms, overlong spectacles. These are the excesses in the classical narrative system that allures to the existence of a competing logic, a second voice. In a way, this second voice is purposed within the gratuitous use of these elements within Michael Bay's films. It can be argued that all Bay's films are created to appeal to as wide of an audience as possible. And the inclusion of elements such as action, explosions, lens flares, character objectification all serve a purpose and are completely intentional. This culminates in a type of film that's solely his own, but at the same time, the idea of body genre tends to fit right into his filmography. As described in Linda Williams' 1991 article, Film Bodies, Gender, Genre, and Excess, body genre is described as heavy doses of sex, violence, and emotion dismissed by one faction or another as having no logic or reason for existence beyond their power to excite. Gratuitous sex, gratuitous violence, and terror, gratuitous emotion are frequent epithets hurled at the phenomenon of the sensational in pornography, horror, and melodrama. As described in the essay, the 3 main genres of the body genre are pornography, horror, and melodrama. Melodrama is not as easy to define as, say, pornography and horror, but in the essay it is described as a broad range of films marked by lapses in realism, by excesses of spectacle and displays of primal, even infantile emotions, and by narratives that seem circular and repetitive. Which, if you've ever watched a Michael Bay film or even tried to follow the story of one, most would fit into that definition. As for horror movies, Michael Bay has never created a straight-up horror movie, but many of his films do feature different horror elements. And when it comes to pornography,
it squirts the fuel in so you can go faster.
Oh. I like to go faster.
Not exactly, but kinda. Body genre is meant to cause a physical reaction in the audience that's viewing it. Say it be fear from a horror movie, emotion from a melodrama, or even arousal from, say, pornography. All of these genres elicit a physical response from the audience, and that is where Michael Bay's use of the spectacle fits into body genre. Be it the use of fear as Michael Clark Duncan is speared through the leg being dragged off for his organs to be harvested in the island, the oddly grotesque spectacle of Decepticon's face being ripped apart in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, the awe of seeing a multitude of cars flung onto a highway in Bad Boys 2, or the gratuitous objectification of most women in his films in order to sell tickets by enticing viewers with an idea of sexiness. Michael Bay understands this idea of spectacle and how it impacts the audience as they watch his movies. For better or for worse, Michael Bay uses the concepts of body genre to widen the appeal of his films. There is a reason why films such as The Island and 13 Hours are some of the lowest performing films in his filmography. These often lack the spectacle that's found in his other films. They're a lot more narrative driven and singular in their focus, and they don't really compare to the overblown juggernaut that is comparatively Transformers. Michael Bay understands spectacle, excess, and body genres, especially in how they relate to each other. And this is a big part in what has made him one of the biggest directors of the past few decades.